Alright, hello there folks, it's me and Ziggy, and today I feel pretty good. So I'm repeating an old video not because I don't feel up to making a new one, but I just couldn't think of anything good. And somebody commented on a video I made 5 years ago called Finding Enlightenment Within Delusion. And I watched the video again and I was like, oh, that guy's pretty good. I mean, sometimes I look at my old stuff and I'm going, wow, how did I come up with that? Anyway, I like this video and I think it is an important point about Zen practice and an important way that Zen sort of differs from some other similar practices like Advaita Vedanta, although I don't say exactly how in the video. But it's the idea that delusion and enlightenment are one thing. Actually, you don't get that in a lot of other teachings. They're kind of concerned more with the enlightenment than finding the enlightenment within delusion. Anyway, I thought this was a good video and I thought I'd rerun it. Ziggy, why don't you look at the camera? I don't want to disturb him. He was so cuddly to me this morning. Anyway, let's run that old video again, and I hope you enjoy it again after 5 years. Here we go. Here's me 5 years ago. Hello, folks. I'm not trying to find Instagram followers because I don't even understand why people want Instagram followers, but I have an Instagram account. And what I'm going to talk about today is related to that because something I've been doing lately on my Instagram is I've been reading a lot of books. And when I find some passage that I like in a book, I'll take a photo of it with my little cell phone and I'll post it as on my Instagram, like a picture of the page where the quote appears. And some people seem to like this, I don't know. And I thought maybe I'd talk about some of those quotations. So you don't really need to follow me on Instagram because I'm just going to read them off to you, but I don't know. If you followed me on Instagram, you'd see them first. I don't know. We'll see if this is a popular series or anything and we want to continue. This one is from a book I've had for a few years, but I just started reading it. I've used it as reference material before, but I never tried to read it, from front to back. It is The Wholehearted Way, as you can see, a translation of Eihei Dogen's Bendowa. And Bendowa is one of Dogen's most famous works. And it's got a commentary by Kosho Uchiyama Roshi and translated by Shohaku Okumura and Taigen Dan Layton, who are reliable translators. And as some of you may have figured out already, because I keep mentioning him, Shohaku Okumura is, I think, one of the best writers about Zen who's, alive and kicking right now. And I think anything he writes is worth reading. And luckily for us, he's written a lot. So this comes from the introduction to The Wholehearted Way, when he's just introducing it. This is Shohaku Okumura then. This is not Dogen or Kosho Uchiyama. This is Okumura Roshi speaking. So our practice is not to eliminate our delusion, but to see or to become aware of the fact that we are deluded. Just become aware of it and let go of it. Do not be pulled by the delusions. Then we really become one with the Buddha way or wondrous Dharma. And the wondrous Dharma is Myoho, and he's been talking in the previous paragraphs about this word Myoho, which is the same Myoho if you're familiar with any Nichiren Buddhists when they chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. At least it's homage to the wondrous Dharma of the Lotus Sutra, so Myoho is wondrous Dharma. Even though we are inherently given wondrous Dharma, we do not know it. But the fact that we do not know it is an aspect of the wondrous Dharma. If we could understand or know it, then it would not be wondrous. So in a sense, we have doubt as to whether this is really enlightenment or really the Buddha way, or whether we are really in the Buddha way from the beginning. Our practice is to let go of this sort of doubt and sit on the basis of this wondrous Dharma, the reality including delusions. This is our practice moment by moment. So I thought that was really great, and it's one of the things that keeps me going with Dogen, because Dogen is not a guy who talks about a state of enlightenment that is over there somewhere. He's talking about real life in the here and now. Of course, he talks in this very flowery way, or at least he writes in a very flowery way. We don't know how he talked because we don't have any recordings of it, but we know how he wrote. And it's very flowery, and it's full of allusions to literature that is most of us haven't read, and concepts that a lot of us aren't familiar with. So it's difficult going. But this thing he talks about all the time is that there is a state of enlightenment, and that our delusions are included within that enlightenment. So it's not that we, hello Ziggy, that we are trying to get rid of delusion, throw it away, and go for enlightenment. You know, like Ziggy might throw away this ball that he has. He has this ball here. Let's see what happens if we throw it. No, he doesn't chase balls. Anyway, we're not trying to throw away our delusions like that and find enlightenment as a replacement for them. We are trying to find the enlightenment within our delusions. Now, the idea of enlightenment or nirvana or any of these things can seem a bit abstract because most of us don't have a kind of a personal experience of that. So we're kind of relying on the hearsay of others to believe it even exists. For example, when I first came across the word nirvana, and I can remember having a discussion with a friend of mine, Joe, when we were both like teenagers, early teenagers, and we were kind of starting to get interested in this, about that nirvana, I thought, was Buddhist heaven, you know, because the only concept I had to relate it to was heaven in the Christian sense, so I thought that Buddhists called heaven nirvana. Well, that's not true, but I think a lot of us Western people get that idea. So we think of nirvana the way we think of heaven, which is as this abstract place that is far, far away that maybe you can get to when you die if you're lucky, but you're not going to experience it here and now. No way, because it's way, way the hell over there. Hell? Anyway, you know, it's way, way over there. But Dogen looks at it another way. He looks at nirvana as being something that is part of the here and now, that is the vaster understanding of the here and now, that everything is nirvana, not the band, but you know, everything is this whole, and delusion is included within that. So when people say you're inherently enlightened or you have original enlightenment, that can also be hard to accept. I don't know exactly why I accepted it. I think I accepted it because I met this guy, Tim McCarthy, who I've referenced a lot on this channel, who had more experience than me with this. He started very young in meditation, and he was about 10 years old. He's almost exactly 10 years older than me. And he'd been doing it for a long time by then, and he was committed to it, and I thought, well, here's this guy who doesn't seem crazy, seems relatable to me, seems smart, doesn't seem to be delusional or, you know, prone to wild fits of misunderstanding things. And he's done this practice for a long time, and it seems grounded. I'd met some other people, you know, I'd hung out with the Hare Krishnas before I met Tim for, I don't know, a year or so, not constantly 365 days a year, but you know, I'd been around them and going to little classes they had and reading their books and things, and I wasn't getting the right feeling from it. I enjoyed the food a lot. I enjoyed the iconography because I'd been exposed to that when I was a little kid in Kenya, that Hindu iconography, those pictures of, you know, the four-armed blue Vishnus and things like that. So I liked that part of it, and I wanted to, you know, delve into it, but there was something that was like, it doesn't work, you know, that's still, you know, kind of chasing after something else. And when I met Tim, I saw that this wasn't chasing after something else. This was an opportunity to look at this life and say, well, what is this? What is this happening right here? Because I don't know about whether nirvana and heaven exist, and I don't know whether hell exists. I don't know whether Jesus existed or did all the things he said. I couldn't be convinced by, you know, the miracle stories of Jesus or any of that, because, like,
nobody knows what happened to JFK, that was, 50 odd years ago, 60 years ago, I don't know, you do the math. But if we can't figure out what happened, just a few decades ago when there were photos and the Zapruder film and all that, how are we supposed to believe in something 2,000 years ago that the only evidence of it is a couple of books, and we don't know how often those books have been rewritten and changed. So that's not going to work for me. What I needed was something grounded in the here and now, and that's what this is. And I like the way Okumura Roshi puts it when he says that our practice is not to eliminate delusion, but to see or become aware of the fact that we are deluded and let go of it. So don't be pulled in by your own delusions. Don't believe the garbage your own head produces, or that the heads of other people produce, because most of what other people say is nonsense. So becoming aware of that, but not necessarily trying to replace it with something else, seemed like an interesting strategy, and that's what Zazen was about. You become aware of delusions, but you're not trying to replace your delusions with a kind of manufactured truth that somebody is giving you, like another framework. And yet, if we go back to the video I did yesterday, that, to me, I don't know if anybody got it, was about frameworks, because Advaita Vedanta provides a kind of a framework for understanding the world, and Zen does too. Zen's framework is a little bit looser, but it's still there. There's this idea of universal oneness, that self and other and self and the world are not two distinct things, they are actually one thing, and there's a certain amount of philosophy in there that they're trying to imbue you with when you're listening to a Zen teacher, or you're listening to me, you hear this from me too. And all of that I found was a more sensible way of looking at the world than the way that I grew up with. The version of things that I grew up with was basically the materialistic paradigm that Western, civilization kind of lives and breathes by. I didn't have a religion growing up. My family was completely irreligious. They weren't anti-religious. They weren't, a bunch of raging atheists or anything like that. But they just didn't go to church. They didn't care about religion. And yet I did, because I thought, well, there's something weird going on. This world is weird. That was one of the things that sort of struck me early on in life, that I can clearly remember even now, was the awesome weirdness of just being alive that other people seemed to miss. Other people were sort of content with, like, okay, it's just like this. And I was like going, well, what the hell is this? What? Why is this even here? I'm kind of walking around, why is this even here? Shouldn't it just be nothing? If you think about it scientifically, every bit of, science that I learned as a kid seemed to add up to the most logical thing for a universe to do is just be dead nothing forever, but it isn't. But there's live things in it, and there's me experiencing this universe. Like, real experience is happening, and I am that real experience, and I can feel, and I can see, and I can think, and I can have this life. Well, what the hell is that? That doesn't make any sense according to your paradigm of how things work. So I went searching for it, and when I found Zen, I found a way of formulating that and making some kind of sense out of it, but it was loose enough that it didn't try to pin me into a belief system. That's what I loved most about Zen, is it wasn't about having a belief system that you had to adhere to. It was more about, you sit and watch it happen and then take your action based on what you find out that way, rather than kind of stuffing your head with ideas that come from old books and things. Although there are ideas from old books and things included within the Zen way of looking at things. So yeah, that's what I want to say about that quote from Shohaku Okumura. I guess that probably made no sense at all. But there you go. Maybe tomorrow I'll come up with a better quote and make more sense out of it. If you want to help me come up with better things to talk about tomorrow, There are links on your screen right now showing you where you can send a donation, and if you're not on YouTube, the links directly to my PayPal and Patreon are in the description section of the video. That is how I make my money. That is most of my living comes from that, not from book royalties, not from speaking fees, but from you folks giving me donations, and I really appreciate that. And if you're having financial trouble, as I always say, don't send me a donation. I'm not desperate, but it is those of you who don't have financial trouble who are still sending me donations who are keeping me able to buy, I said dog food and ice cream last time, I don't know, dog food and ice cream again. See you later. Have a good time all the time. Bye.